since day one.
Hi, I'm Coach Mea, and welcome to Glow 365 final three-part segment of our documentary entitled The Choice to Live, Warriors of Hope and Wellness. Ribbons of Survivors 365 has been bringing this program to you to raise awareness during the following May as Mental Health Month. I'd like to remind our audience that this episode includes adult-rated content that may not be suitable for children. Viewers' discretion is advised. When you think of the choice to live, it is very personal to me, not only because mental challenges has affected some of my close friends, associates, family members. Also, I too myself have faced challenges as well and gone to the very edge and haunted by thoughts of suicide. I choose life. Today, we are featuring experts in the field of mental health who are discussing some of the critical issues and solutions in making the choice to live. But first, please don't forget to subscribe and like us on YouTube at Official KUO Magazine. There you can watch all our current and previous shows. Oh, excuse me. Now, let me introduce you to my host for this special show, Leonard Burg. He's a soul therapist, a psycho-spiritual coach, consultant, author of the book Dis-Ease is the Cure, dean of Quayle Works, advisor, producer, head writer for Glow 365 shows, and all KU Magazine specialty shows. Lenny, welcome back.
Well, it's certainly glad to be back because I think this is a critical issue in our community that gets overlooked. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Now, before we get into the specific of this evening's show, our third final segment of the three-part series, let's recap on the episode that was aired on May 24th. It featured suicide to the edge and back. In it, we heard two powerful stories from Coach Evangelist Lady Q and Coach Rhea Mixon, who attempted suicide several times. Sophie, can you briefly recap your interview with Coach Rhea, please?
Certainly. First of all, welcome, Glow team, and all the viewers. Yes, it was a very heartfelt conversation. I just want to stop and say thank you so much, Coach Rhea, for taking the time to be so open, so vulnerable, and sharing your deep, most personal, intimate story with the entire world. I know it was difficult for you, and that's why we do this show. You know, Coach Rhea, shared her story as to what it was like growing up as a child. She recalled that from an early age of 5 and what happened when she was 11, 12 years old. Just sharing the fact that she thought from an early age how her home life affected her and how she always felt different just growing up in her home, in life. She shared the fact that her story about going to the edge and back, and how she literally took a handful, like approximately 42 pills, and locked herself in a closet. She shared what it was like waking up and wondering why she was still here. And, I want to say, with all of that, going to the edge and back, since then she's made her life so impactful to the community she's chosen to live. She has become a warrior of hope and wellness. She's an advocate for mental health. She's now a specialist in chronic conditions. She specializes in specialty coaching in certain areas, and she has several businesses. And her life has turned tremendously around, where she spends every waking day just reaching out and sharing and giving back to the community. So that was just one heartfelt story of Coach Rhea. And we just want to say thank you again, Coach Rhea, for opening up to the entire world. It was difficult.
Yes, we definitely have to commend her for that. She is truly a warrior itself, and we know how difficult it is to share, something personal story, and especially when it's dealing with mental health. So we do commend and we tip our hats to her. So thank you, Rhea, for sharing your story. Now, Lenny, you also had a special interview with Coach Evangelist Lady Q. Can you share that recap?
Yes, certainly. Lady Q is a certified life coach and evangelist, and she rose from the edge to become one of the leading figures in her community, advocating for mental health, wellness, and how to deal with issues such as suicide, which she attempted several times. But if you saw where she's at now, if you've ever thought of it yourself or know someone who has, you can be helped. She shared why and how one can perilously walk on the proverbial edge of suicide, but not only choose to live, but in doing so, live an exceptional, productive life of service, which she has done. Lady Q stressed the importance of family, friends, and community in recognizing the signs of those teetering on the edge of suicide. But she shared how all too often people dare to open their eyes and sweep it under the rug for cultural and other reasons. For example, she spoke of some of the issues that underlie the attempts to commit suicide. First of all, many of your chronic diseases have an emotional component that sometimes saps a person's will to live. In some cases, there's chronic sexual, verbal, and emotional abuse, feelings of hopelessness, being unwanted, unloved, bullied, and looking for love in the wrong places. Lady Q shared that not only can family and friends be a resource instead of sweeping it under the rug, to help loved ones on the edge of suicide to choose life, but there are also other affordable mental health resources in the community, which we'll give you some links later on to take advantage of that. There are community organizations, hospitals, or even therapy, which can be availed in order to deal with the issue. But Lady Q did emphasize that the primary resource to help a person choose to live doesn't cost any money. It's the sense of self within them. What she called that extra spiritual dimension of self, that spiritual connection that they can pull on inside in times of stress and hopelessness. So now let's take a quick break. And when we return, you'll hear one of the more powerful stories of someone who found her moment of truth when at the edge with thoughts of suicide. Back in 60 seconds.
The Jamaican American Association of Central Florida proudly presents Jamaica's 60th Independence Scholarship and Debutantes Award Gala on August 6, 2022 at the Rosen Plaza Hotel from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. Guest speaker will be Dr. Dwayne Dice, CEO of Education Solution International. Co-MCs are Mr. Lewis Witter and Miss Adriana Clark of Caribbean Rhythms Radio. Dinner served at 7:30 p.m., music and dancing by DJ Charlie Brown and Caribbean Groove Band. Tickets are $75 by calling 407-467-1741 or 321-439-2130 and also 407-292-3719. Join us for a night of excellence and elegance as we celebrate Jamaica's Diamond Jubilee. For more information, please visit online at www.jaaocf.com.
Thank you. In our third episode, it was entitled "Suicide: The Moment of Truth." In it, an extraordinary woman, our own Lady Mea, spoke about how she'd faced the challenge of thoughts of suicide. And she previewed why and how she chose to live and what message she has for all of us. Again, we want to remind you that the following episode includes adult-rated content that may not be suitable for children. Viewers' discretion is advised. Lady Mea, before you share the details of the productive life of service you have pursued since being on the edge of suicide, please share what it was like leading up to that moment of truth and what it was like to be on the edge, and also what exactly prevented you from taking the leap.
Well, sitting on that edge, I remember sitting in the bathroom and plotting, different scenarios of committing suicide, from taking pills to slitting my wrist, jumping off a balcony, shooting myself, or just simply walking into the ocean and allow the waves to just consume my whole body, and when I look back at even just taking pills, I don't like taking pills, cutting my wrist. I was worrying about, okay, I'm going to mess up my pretty skin, jumping off a balcony or a cliff. I'm afraid of heights, shooting myself. No, that's not going to work because I don't like guns, but that moment, when four angels, which are my children, walked in suddenly, and I realized that, I blacked out. I totally forgot I had children. I lost all sense of reality, Lenny.
Well, at the time, you were even locked up or sequestered in the bathroom when they came upon you, right?
Yeah, because during my chemo treatments, I was so sick that by the time I vomited, then by the time I go back in the room, it's like come back. So I just went and put my blanket and pillow, and I just stayed in the bathroom, and pretty much that toilet bowl was like my best friend because I hugged it so much.
Okay, well, you have some lovely little children who are now not so little. And that's something to think about because it's not just you. There are many people, Lady Mea, who suffer health issues, not just from lifestyle factors, but also related to heredity, genetics, and emotional issues. How did this affect your state of mind and mental health that led you to the brink of suicidal thoughts?
Going back to 22 years ago, I'm now a 22-year breast cancer survivor, which was a very traumatic time in my life, literally, when your whole being is being stripped, your whole core is stripped down. And hearing those three words, you have cancer, it is scary. I got to a point where I lost my self-confidence and my self-worth. I even lost my faith that I even cussed God so much. Why? What have I done in my childhood or, to have this upon me, and, even later on when I got over that, I dealt with some other issues, but, it also goes back to being bullied in school. I was culturally discriminated, so, and then my second son, is one of a twin, which was born early. So I lost that one twin. So it's like all these thoughts and everything, traumatic time just came rushing in. And I was just like, I can't deal with this anymore. I want to leave. I want peace, you know.
Well, Lady Mea, after all of that, yet you became a life coach and a magazine publisher, an award-winning community activist. You were awarded by the Congress of the United States, and you've become a media mogul. Please share how in the world this metamorphosis relates to what you call the power of looking in the mirror.
Well, you know, that's one of the things after my treatment, I had to learn to love myself. I struggle with that because, you know, as a woman, you know, when you lose your hair and you lose one of your breasts, you know, you you feel less of a woman. And even for almost a year, I would never look at myself in the mirror because I didn't want to see that person that I saw, because she wasn't me anymore, you know. And I cried all the time. And, you know, so that's one of the things, you know, why I became a life coach and do what I do, because I want, you know, women itself to appreciate themselves, love who they are, regardless of whether, you know, you lose any part of your body. You know, you will always be a woman. That's what was told to me. And don't ever forget that. Also, you know, educate, you know, one of my things is educating and being able to inspire women itself to just love themselves, love all their flaws, because, you know, that's how God created us. So just love every being of us.
All right. Well, finally, Lady Mea, that's what we call you. Please share how suicide is not just the final act of taking one's life. It actually can begin long before that. How does it relate to things like lifestyle, diet, and the need to pursue more of a life of wellness, of self-care, than people may be experiencing?
You know, when you look at, you know, mental health, and we look back and we think it's, you know, thoughts and or, you know, our mindset, which is an important thing. You know, being in a good mental health can prevent us from serious health conditions. Our body needs, you know, both to be mentally and physically to be able to function, you know, properly and be aligned at once so that we can be happy. We also have to have a proper diet, because that can also lead to stress and also depression. And then, you know, we might end up, you know, binge eating and overweight, that causing a whole nother, you know, medical issue. And then it also affects, you know, our family, our friends, and even, you know, our personal, intimate relationships as well. And practicing self-care weekly, it's so important. You got to take time for me, because me got to come first, and, you know, find that mindfulness, that mental wellness to be able to function in everything that we do. And also just surround yourself with positive people that will empower you and inspire you to maintain that mental wellness.
You know, Lady Mea, thank you. So many people, there are many people who are selfless servers. They're always helping and serving others. But, you know, they sometimes seem to think that self-care is selfish, but it's not selfish. All you got to do is think about when you're on an airplane, you're with your little daughter, the plane's going down, the oxygen mask comes down. What did they tell you? Put yours on first, because you're no good if you die. So self-care is not selfish. So now let's take a quick break. And when we return, we'll start our roundtable discussion interviews with DrMax on Mental Health 101. Back in 60 seconds.
Hello and welcome. My name is Ronnie Walker. Allow me to introduce you to the MrRelationshipManCave.com website. Listen, gentlemen, today is not the day to show up halfway for yourself and for the woman you aim to please. Nutrition and mental health are important to fully experience a healthy and exceptional relationship. As a man, we want to make sure we have what is needed to start and finish strong. So go to www.mrrelationshipmancave.com and explore the possibilities.
Okay, welcome back. What's next, Lady Mea?
Well, we got Dr. Max. You're up next, Lenny. Let's talk about Mental Health 101 with Dr. Max.
And also, let's remind our audience that this episode, like previous episodes, includes adult-related content that may not be suitable for children, so viewer discretion is advised. Our next panelist is Dr. Maxine Ruddock. She's a clinical psychologist, a life coach, founder of Comprehensive Psychological and Assessment Services, CPAS, which provides counseling and other mental health services to the community. She specializes in self-empowerment and what we talked about earlier, self-care, for women especially. She's a speaker and a lecturer. She's a founder of an organization, Sisters of the Spirit, and she's the host and producer of her story, her journal, a journal of her journey, which she presents in the form of a podcast. Dr. Max, welcome. Before we explore some of the clinical issues related to attempts at suicide, please share how you work to increase awareness of mental health issues, including suicide, in our community.
Well, one of the things that for suicide is it tends to be such a taboo subject. Like people think that we need to not look at the boogeyman in the room. It's like the elephant that's in the room, but nobody wants to talk about it. I work to try to make the conversation about suicide as normal as possible because, believe it or not, many people experience suicidal thoughts, even if it's just a quick thought of, I wish I wasn't here, or something like, oh my gosh, why am I awake today? Those are really what we would call passive suicidal thoughts. So, a great number of people experience it, but everyone is so afraid to talk about it. But once you kind of introduce it in the room and say, hey, when you get overwhelmed, do you ever feel like you'd be better off not being here? And then, that kind of opens the door for people to say, well, yeah, I get these thoughts. And then you can go a little bit further to see just how serious the thoughts are. But, not only do I try to normalize it in conversations, I even, I started from home. I talk to my children about it, just in case you're around friends, here's how you can do it. And then I just kind of do it in a concentric manner. I talk to my neighbors about it. When I'm doing training with my interns, I teach them how to explore that. And then I go out and I do presentations in the community. So for me, there's a passion in my heart that mental health in general and suicide specifically is spoken about so people understand it is not as abnormal as people think. Many people think, even if it's just for that 1 second, sometimes that thought may come up.
However, since it is such a taboo, as you've said, how can you tell a person may be contemplating suicide? And what are some of the ways to approach someone who you think may be suicidal?
Well, one of the things that show up for people when they're experiencing suicide is that they start to withdraw from people. Sometimes they may start giving away their possessions. If someone is on medication, they may start trying to hoard that medication because they have a plan. But, the best way to find out if someone is contemplating suicide is to ask them. People are afraid to ask the question directly because sometimes they think, well, maybe they're not thinking about it, but if I suggest it, then I'm going to be the one to put it in their mind. Most of the people that I talk to will tell you how relieved they are that someone brought it up, because it's such a difficult and powerful, forbidden feeling in their heart. And when someone actually allows them to, by opening the door with a touching conversation, with a caring conversation, and not that you want to pathologize the person or make them feel bad, you just simply normalize it by saying, have you ever thought about, has that thought entered your mind? And if so, how often and when? And then you might start to follow up with more questions. Then you want to see, if the person says yes, you want to see just how serious they may be. How often is it happening for you? Do you have a plan? Because we always want to assess for that. If the thought is there, we want to know if you have means, and we want to know if you have a plan. Means, again, especially if it's someone who's been going through a recent illness or something like that, they may have a lot of medications. That's means. You want to kind of ask them, have you been taking your medications on time? Have you been storing the medications? Maybe you can kind of check it if it's a loved one and you have access to doing that. But, really just opening the conversation. And then, if you are going to talk to someone about it, leave space for the person to talk to you, kind of go in and say, during this time, I'm going to be here with this person for an hour or two, because you certainly don't want someone to say, well, yes, I'm experiencing it. But then you have to go in the next half hour. Also, if you do think that someone is experiencing that, have a plan in case that person does say yes, so that you have some referrals in place or some next steps. But certainly don't open that door and then walk away from the person.
Okay, so doctor, you are a specialist. You have experience. You can probably see things that some other people can't see. And there are people who associate having suicidal thoughts with being crazy or weak. How do you break through that kind of barrier that people have put up?
Well, one of the things that whenever we're talking to people about that, you can sometimes have your own self-disclosure, because you can talk about that sense of feeling overwhelmed. It's simply a matter of that individual's breaking point where that person loses hope. And so you kind of want to look for some conversations that might have the person talking to you about they don't see tomorrow with any kind of brightness in it, or they don't have any plans for the future. That's an indication that that person doesn't think that things are going to get better. For us, that's one of the greatest markers and indicators that someone might be thinking about suicide, when they don't think that tomorrow will ever get better. So you can kind of ask them, what are your future plans? What are you thinking about doing later? And if they say nothing, and they're consistently telling you that they have nothing planned, and then you can dig a little bit deeper and say, well, what do you see yourself doing 5 years from now? Are you going to work? And if they continue to tell you, then you're probably looking at someone with a sense of hopelessness. And a sense of hopelessness for us in the mental health field is one of the greatest markers that suicidal thoughts might be there.
Thank you. That's very insightful. So what about this? When you if somebody comes in contact with someone who insists that he or she wants to commit suicide, how do you deal with that?
Get that person help. Hopelessness is a dark place to be. And if you are not equipped, if you're not trained to manage that, that's when, again, like I said earlier, when you go and you open this conversation, you want to make sure that you have some resources in place to immediately address it in case there's serious suicidal ideation or thoughts going on. So it's to try your best in that moment to infuse hope into that person. Even if they say, I can't see it, tell them you can hold it for them. Tell them, I will walk you through the steps. I will go with you. And that's why I said earlier, you have to be prepared in case the answer is yes, that you've put some time aside and that you've put some resources in place, and that you're able to connect the person to services where other people can then take over and help to kind of hold them until that moment of darkness goes by. Because as you even listened to what Mea said earlier, it was that moment, and then her children came back and they infused that hope in her, and that gave her the strength. So, it's very important that if you find someone who's very serious about it, you have to believe them. They mean it. And so take steps to try to connect them right away to someone else that can actually help them, and to hold that hope and to give them a reason. And it might even mean getting them hospitalized. You might feel like you're betraying that person, but you're not. You're really taking steps to keep them safe until they are in a position to keep themselves safe.
How true. Now, that's a person contemplating, maybe thinking about suicide. Unfortunately, there are those who go all the way. They step off the edge. How do friends and family recover and heal from the emotional wounds suffered when someone they've known and loved has committed suicide?
It's such a painful process because, if someone dies in an accident or something like that, then people, they grieve. But if someone that you love commits suicide, then there's also a sense of guilt associated with that. What did I miss? Did that person call out to me and I didn't hear it? Was I a part of that process? So it's important to understand that grieving can become a bit more complicated than the typical grieving that's associated with losing someone, because you are incorporated in that grieving, because you might often think that you failed that person and maybe that person was crying out for help and you missed it. So it's important to actually go in and not to blame yourself, because again, you cannot control everything. And it's to kind of to go in and to understand that that person did that action and there's nothing you can do to change it. And then to just, find someone to help you. Just like you would have wanted that person to find someone and get help, find someone to help you to go through that process, because that's what we would consider complicated grieving, because now you're incorporated into the grieving process, because sometimes you might think that you played a part in that death.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you one final question about your podcast. But before we do that, Dr. Max, do you have a special offer for us? Because we want people to be able to get in touch with you and find out more about your services. So let's see what offer you might have to help people do that.
Well, I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I am most passionate about helping women walk into their divine design. I do that through the coaching services that I offer. So I do personal and professional transformative coaching. And with that, a lot of women will come to me and they're seeking guidance, like what is my next step? How do I level up? How do I find out what my purpose is in life? And I do laser targeted questions that actually causes them to go deeper inside, because the answer is not in me, the answer is in them. I become a coach that guides them to get to that answer inside of them, and then help them to create a roadmap to bridge the gap to who am I to this is who I am. So that's what I do as a coach. And I do that with, again, like I said, very targeted, laser focused sessions. And so my offer to a woman out there are two 1-hour targeted coaching sessions within the space of a 3-month, because in the first month, what we're going to do is go through that laser process to kind of help you to figure it out. And then we're going to have a step and a roadmap, and then we'll come back again an hour later in 3 months to see where you need to pivot and then to continue in your journey.
Well, thank you. I think later on, we're going to give your telephone number and email. Maybe you can give it now so that people will know how to contact you.
Well, if you want to get in touch with me by phone, you can give me a call at 352-508-7594. That's 352-508-7594. Or you can email me at m.ruddock@drmaxineruddock.com. And again, that's m.ruddock, R-U-D as in David, D as in David, O-C-K, at drmaxineruddock.com.
Thank you, Doctor. Finally, everything you said tonight has been empowering for me. But you also share empowering stories on what you call your Her Story, your Her Journey podcast. Can you please share something about that so that people can find you?
Okay. Well, the podcast is called Her Story, Her Journey. And pretty much it's like a pun on history, but it's her story. And so what I do is I believe that every single woman has something extra inside of her. And so I'm not looking for someone who's a celebrity. I'm looking for that everyday woman who is going through life and surviving, and not just surviving, she's thriving. Despite what kind of obstacles and adversities that life throws at her, she reaches deep down inside. She pulls that extra and she survives. And then she turns around and she pulls other women with her. And so what I do is I seek women like that, and I want to shine the light on them, and I want them to tell their stories, not to stand under the story, but to stand on top of that story and to shout the light to other women out there and to actually inspire other women. So that's what her story, her journey is about. And let me tell you, God is in the middle of it, because that story has actually reached women. People call me and say, I share my story, or thank you for having that woman share her story. It's exactly what I had been experiencing. Thank you, so that I don't feel so much alone. So, if there's a woman out there who wants to share her story to inspire her other sisters out there, please give me a call, because we would love to hear your story.
All right. So remember those key words: her story, her journey.
Yes.
Podcast by Dr. Maxine Ruddock.
Yes.
Now we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, Coach Mea is going to have a little chat with Dr. Donald Tate. And he's a grief counselor, and he will give us a better understanding of the relationship of grief to thoughts of suicide. For instance, whether grief is considered to be a mental illness, how grief can impact our lives and cause a ripple effect. For example, one that drains our physical, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being in a way that can lead to thoughts of or acts of suicide. And if we have time, I'd like Dr. Tate to also include in his talk what Dr. Max touched on, which is sometimes called survivor's remorse. So this and more when we return in 30 seconds.
Hello, I'm Dr. Donald Tate, founder and CEO of Dr. Donald Tate and Associates, and I'm a grief recovery specialist. I obtained my doctorate degree in what is called metaphysical science from the University of Sedona. It's under the umbrella of theology, psychology, sociology, and all those other ologies. And I'm honored to be on the Glow 365 virtual show. Let me share a little something about what is grief and how to flip the script. So come on, let's go.
Our second guest is, again, what you just heard, Dr. Donald Tate, who is no stranger to Glow 365 show. He is a grief recovery specialist. He's the founder of Dr. Tate and Dr. Donald Tate and Associate, and he's also a yoga teacher. Dr. Tate, welcome back to Glow.
It is great to be back, Mea. Great to be back. Thank you.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Now, let's dive into right now, Dr. Tate. Question, is grief mental illness? Consider that?
Man, that's a great question. Grief by itself is not a mental illness. Let's remind the audience now, grief is normal and natural, okay? However, when someone have experienced a trauma, like somebody that got hit or a terrifying event, we call that post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's when it becomes a mental illness.
Now, some people see grief as only related to losing a loved one or a friend. How do other kinds of loss affect grieving and the possibility have thoughts of suicide? We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Dr. Tate, we can't hear you. Could you unmute, please?
Okay. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I was saying that, honestly speaking, no one knows what goes on in the mind of someone that want to harm themselves. This is the reason. This is really the reason why I don't handle those particular cases. I tell them to go ahead and call the hotline suicide or DrMax.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, what are some ways that people can be more effectively to deal with grief and avoid it getting to one point of thoughts of suicide?
Well, I hate to be redundant, Mea, but my advice is to get help. And there's an old Indian saying, don't ask why, because why will give you the answer. Ask how. How will give you the solution. And the first step is to make that phone call, which is a very, very challenging thing to do. Very. So that is the first step. I would advise them to make that phone call or talk to someone to make the phone call for them if they need to.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, another touchy conversation is the stigma that continues to float around African Americans that refuse to seek professional help if they're grieving or feeling they have some sort of emotional or mental issue. What is your take on that?
I mean, the statistics tell us that about 25% of the African Americans seek mental health care compared to the 40 of whites. And now let me share one of my experience from a grief recovery specialist point of view. I met this person and I knew he was grieving. He just lost his father. And I asked him a simple question. Hey man, how are you doing? And he gives this, what we call the award-winning performance. I'm fine. And that happens a lot of times. No, you're not fine. You need to talk to someone because you're going down the rabbit hole. So they too need to go ahead and find some type of relief to call someone for help.
Now let's get deeper in this, Dr. Tate. Well, actually, let me go back just a little bit.
Okay.
Do you see mental health in the Black community changing anytime soon?
Yes. Being aware is over half of any challenge. The other half is what are we going to
Dr. Tate, I think we lost a little sound from you.
I do apologize.
No problem. Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, as I said, being aware is over half of any challenge. The other half is what to do about it. So the community is waking up slowly. I remember when growing up, someone had a stroke or a heart attack that was used to call old folks disease. And now younger people are experiencing, which is a big wake-up call, very big.
Now, can you go a little deeper in this change, Dr. Tate?
Yes, Mea. My roommate, my teacher, my advisor, my friend just passed away 2 weeks ago today. I watched him struggle on a daily basis to stay on schedule with his medication, exercise, and lifestyle. And it wasn't until about 6 months ago he decided to shift his mental awareness to health awareness. Now remember, it's not until he decided that the change began. Fortunately, Mea, the word is out now, and many of my brothers and sisters of colors have answered the call. So I've seen this shift slowly. It is going slowly.
Thank you for sharing that. And we know that's something also, within the Caribbean American community with that. And I just hope that stigma, starts to go away, that, we don't feel ashamed or feel that it's being weak in seeking help. But getting to the root of the problem so that we can start the process on that journey to mental wellness. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Tate, in educating us a little bit more on grief and how it relates to mental health. You also have a offer for our viewers, do you not? Think you're muting again. We lost your.
Me, I think I might have to get me a new computer. I don't know what's going on.
It just doesn't want to talk.
No, it really don't. It don't.
It's ready to go to bed. It's like, look,
Yeah,
I've had enough today.
Mea is grieving. It's grieving.
Yes, it's grieving.
Well, yes,
challenges.
And it's the last day of Mental Health Month. Okay. Well, this Saturday, Mea, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. This Saturday, from 7 o'clock to 7:30 p.m., I'll be presenting What is Grief? Now, at the end of the presentation, I'll be offering a 7-week group session online that retails for $250. For your audience, I dropped that price to $125 for those who this week call in. And the number is 571-969-7766. That number again is 571-969-7766. Or they can email me at releasethegrief@gmail.com. I'm here when you're ready. That's HEAR. I'm here when you're ready.
We hear you.
No pun intended.
Yes, true. Now, you also do Meditate with Dr. Tate, and that's going to be starting up, I think, this Saturday coming. Can you share a little bit about that? Dr. Tate?
The new gym, the EOS, just gave me the go-ahead to go and do the meditation, Meditate with Dr. Tate, starting this Sunday from 7 until 7:30. We're going to take a pause for the cause. It doesn't matter if you're going to a massage therapist, working out in the gym, all those things are beautiful. They're only supplements until you know how to take a pause for the cause. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And by the way, it's free.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We're looking forward to it. I did take one of your meditation class, and I'm telling you, during those even thoughts of suicide or, depression is stressed out, it really helps. It really helps there. So thank you. And I encourage everyone to check it out, and also check out his presentation coming up as well, too, and get some meditation in. It'll save your lives.
Yes. Thank you.
Ernie,
Thank you very much.
what's going on next?
I'm going to be Coach Sophie on the role of life coaching and relationships in addressing mental health issues, including suicide. Okay.
I am excited to officially announce that as we speak, Quayle Works is setting up the Quayle Works Empowerment Broadcasting Network. This institution will assist development groups in the U.S. and around the world to set up their own empowerment television channels. Our licenses and software enable these channels to be accessed through Roku, Amazon Fire, Chromecast, or Apple TV, thus ultimately giving us access to potentially 250 million subscribers. As part of that effort, we are launching our own Quayle Works Self-Empowerment channel in the first quarter of 2022. I hope you are as excited as we are. So stay tuned, as the game has indeed changed. And for those who are interested in subscribing to our network, getting involved with this effort as a program producer, becoming an affiliate, or setting up your own independent TV channel, email us at quailyworks@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you very much, Kat. We call her Lady Kat. Our third guest is Miss Sophia Green. We know her as Sophie G from Apopka, Florida. She is a certified life and life purpose coach, a relationship coach. She's host and producer of the Sophie G Show, and she's a co-host, producer, assistant writer of the Glow 365 TV shows and mental health documentary. Welcome back, Sophie.
Hey, big brother, Lenny. Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Okay, first, Sophie, please explain what exactly is a certified coach and certified life coach and life purpose coach, and what's the importance of having a purpose in life that helps keep people from thoughts of suicide?
Hmm, that's full. Well, a certified life coach is somebody who's trained in helping individuals to with certain skills, to develop certain skills as to how to navigate life's turmoils, how to go through things that's happened in our lives in a way that can edify our lives to a next level. It's somebody who's trained to help persons to develop a special, significant kind of a mind growth that can assist in aiding in the development of physical well-being, emotional well-being, psychological or emotional well-being. A life purpose coach is targeted in focusing on helping somebody to figure out what's their the purpose in life. A lot of people reach out to a life purpose coach when they want to figure out, what do I do with my career? What am I here in this world for? What is my purpose in even surviving in this universe? And we help to develop people the life skills that can help figure it out by giving them tools that can navigate the roads and the turmoils and the trials as to letting our passions be our guide that can put us on the right path to find our purpose so that we can live more edifying and fulfilling lives. And I think the importance of, in this subject, of having life or figuring out your life purpose is that I think that when most people who are dismayed, going through challenges in life, get to that point of should I even exist? I think it's usually because they're at a point where they're trying to figure out, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Once a person has learned how to tap into that mind power, willpower of knowing why that is, it gives purpose and reason to justify staying alive. Having a purpose to keep going, finding your passion in life that helps you to feel like you want to get up in the mornings, feel like you want to go out and face the world. It's a big eye opener when you feel like somebody is counting on you. I matter. I mean something to this universe. So I think when somebody figures that out,
Okay.
it helps us take a step back.
That reminds me then of relationships, because we're not in this world alone. Mm-hmm. From your experience, Sophie, what role does positive relationships have in sustaining a positive mental health and attitude, a self-care versus self-destructive way of life that can even lead to suicide as a final act of self-destruction? How does positive relationships impact that?
Again, like attracts like. There's a saying that we are as strong as the weakest link. If we surround ourselves with positivity, then we will feel positive. If we put ourselves in places where we know that we have people who have our best interests at heart, who can pour the fuel into us when we're feeling low on energy, low or weak. It's like having a petrol stop. In coaching world, there's a terminology where we refer to persons who are pitchers and cups. Having positive people in our surroundings will help pour fuel back into us whenever we're feeling weak, and it helps to keep. They also help to keep us accountable and guide us. It's like going to the gym and having a spotter, someone who's going to help you lift the weights whenever you're feeling down. Having positive relationships in our lives helps to keep us on the right path, because we keep ourselves, people who can call us out when we know that we need to get back on track. Give us the light when our batteries are going down to keep us going. So it's important, especially when we're challenged with mind wellness, to keep us constructive so we don't fall off track. It's like keeping the fuel going. It's very, very imperative to surround ourselves with people who are going to want the best for us, and vice versa.
It reminds me of the saying, birds of a feather flock together.
Flock together.
Choosing who you want to be around. You're going to be around those people who steal your dream and put you down, or people who are striving for purpose, as you spoke of. Finally, Sophie, as a life coach, what advice would you give to our audience regarding one's self or friends or loved ones choosing life in the face of thoughts of suicide?
What I'll say is, if we stop and realize that we're all here for a purpose, if we realize that there's an expression that we're divine beings, and we're all connected somehow. I'll just use the terminology of like attracts like, and chains, and weakest link and strongest link. If we remember that everybody goes, because we're of flesh, we all go through challenges in life. Everybody has an empty cup sometimes that we wish the world or the Lord or the Almighty would just take from us. I would say just pause wherever you are. And as Dr. Max just said, that everybody sometime in life gets that thought, if it's even for a brief moment. It's pulling back and stopping and counting to 10, and just think that no matter what you're going through, you're not the only person. We know that statistics show that 1 in every 5 persons across the country are having thoughts of mental crisis, which even has thoughts of suicide. We go back as far as biblically speaking, where we know there are few men. Scriptures tell us that, Solomon was in pursuit of health, of pleasure. He reached a point where he hated himself and he wanted to die. Where Elijah was so fearful and depressed and he yearned for death. Where Jonah pleaded and wanted to die. Even Jesus Christ himself was at a point where he said, please take this cup from me. You're not alone. Get help before you decide to try to just vanish from this world. There's somebody who's depending on you. The stories we heard last week, the stories Mea just shared, the story that Lady Q shared, that Coach Rhea shared, that Dawn shared. There's always someone who's depending on you, who needs you. And the point where you are right now, are feeling the lowest in your life, it's not going to last forever. Your purpose is to stand back, find the strength that's in you, and be that hero to the next person. Because chances are somebody else under the same roof is having the same feeling. You just need to have that conversation. Chances are your neighbor across the street, if it's 1 in every 5, is having a down feeling. And if you can just pull yourself back, you can be that person's hero that can be their reservoir to keep them going.
All right.
Life is beautiful and you are beautiful.
All
just
right.
remember that.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Now we're going to wrap up the program, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to give me one main takeaway from tonight's program out of everything they've said or heard. Mea, let's start with you. You got to unmute yourself, I think.
Yeah, we talked about so much things tonight, but the one takeaway that I have to emphasize is get help. I can't stress it anymore. Get help to get to that place of mental wellness.
All right. Dr. Max, how about you?
Well, I wish you had asked me for Mia because I would have said that. But since that,
She stole your line.
since you already said that, I want to just piggyback on it and get help. But just remember, you're not alone. I know in the darkness, it's very easy to look around and you can't see because in darkness you don't see. But just even that one little glimmer of light, if you nurture it, it becomes bigger, bigger until it's a flame. So if you can just realize that in that darkness, you're not alone, reach out your hand and trust someone will touch it.
Thank you so much. Dr. Tate, how about you?
There's a powerful saying that I want to share with you. To the world, you may just be one person, but to one person, you may just be the world. Everyone needs to believe that, and that's piggybacking on getting help.
Thank you. Sophie, how about you?
I'm gonna use Dr. Max's phrase. She said, "The boogeyman is a passive suicidal thoughts is the boogeyman in the room, and
Oh, yeah.
hopelessness is a dark place. But if 1 in every 5 of us have had that thought, sometime along the line, that means chances are the person next to you, you can take a chance to have that conversation with." Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, I thought you started to take my line because I was going to talk about dialogue. You know, there's been recent studies by neurologists and scientists who have actually proven that talk therapy can build new neuron paths in the brain and can contribute to healing. So it's not just psychotherapists, psychiatrists who talk. As has come out in tonight's session, Dr. Max and others, start talking to people, start interacting with people, start getting into people, you see, because that's the way they'll really understand, as has been said, they're not alone. And this too shall pass. Finally, just to sum it up, during the show, we've heard heartfelt stories of having thoughts of suicide, turning mental challenges into raised awareness, the need to help our friends, family, and community to sit longer in silence, hey, like meditation, and how important it is to make the choice to live. And we sincerely hope that you, our audience, can help others who may not be aware of that to make that choice to live. Thank you. So, coming on next on the Glow 365 TV show on Tuesday, June 14th at 7 p.m. That's June 14th, 7 p.m. There'll be a special guest, Dr. Ronald Lynch. The topic will be men's health. Not just women, but lots of men too contemplate suicide. He's going to encourage the men in your lives to take care of themselves by eating healthy, exercising, and working to prevent diseases.
Thank you, Lenny, for sharing that. And I would like to thank my host, Leonard, and our special panel guests, Dr. Donald Tate, Dr. Max, and Coach Sophie G, and you, the viewers, for tuning in. Again, I also want to remind our audience that if someone you know is at immediate risk or self-harm, suicide, or hurting another person, ask that tough question, are you considering suicide? Listen to the person without judgment. Call 911 or the local emergency number, or text TALK to 741741 to communicate with a trained crisis counselor. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or visit online at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. They are available 24/7 across the United States. It's free and confidential. Stay with the person until professional help arrives. Try to remove any weapon, medication, or other potential harmful objects. And I want to leave this quote with you all. It says, "For darkness restores what the light cannot repair," which means that the light can repair things in the material world, but that there are limitations of that kind of fixing. Medicine, for instance, can heal in the light, but if the spirit isn't well, there is no life. By Joseph Brodsky. Remember, there is hope and there is help to get to a place of mental wellness. And because you're not alone, we're there. I'm Coach Mea, coming to you from Florida. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe, well, and continue to find your glow within the mind, body, and soul.
Lady Mea, can I just tell people briefly that the soul is my forte, because I'm a soul therapist. So I want to offer a free 1-hour session to anyone who calls this number, 347-989-4147. That's 347-989-4147. You can text that number or call, and I'll give you a taste of the process of soul therapy, which is healing through consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lenny, for sharing that. Of course, we didn't want to forget your offer as well. And again, don't forget Dr. Max, also her offer as well, to contact her. And I'll be sharing that also at the end of the show. And also Dr. Donald Tate as well. Again, until next time, stay safe and well.
Been here since day one.